Go.
Harold Knott, I live on Farron Street in the village. I am interested in being a selectman. I grew up with my parents being in some local town offices and stuff like that, and I always thought it was a good idea. Is that not working? Yes, I don't. Oh, okay. I didn't know that was overriding me. I may not have all the answers, but I think I can be a positive influence to help the town of Hill grow, but not grow out of control, and be able to be steered in the direction that we wanted as a small town. That's pretty much what I have to offer a selectman.
What do you feel is wrong with the current administration?
I wouldn't say there's anything really wrong with them. There is a lot of turmoil. Fire department just lost our road agent, unfortunately. We lost our chief of police, not for any fault of the administration, but there's a lot of turnover and turmoil in the town, and we need to try to stop that from happening.
What do you plan on doing different?
Well, I'd like to see the fire department finish its healing process. I think it's on the way to do that, and it needs to, the hatchet needs to be buried there and move on with being positive towards the townspeople and stuff like that. As far as the highway department, we got a couple new guys on there now. I know one of them is interested in the position of road agent. I think he would do a pretty good job. Whether he gets it or not is not up to me, obviously, unless I'm a selectman. I think that needs to be addressed, and get a third guy back on there full time, and there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be repaired around town and stuff like that. So,
Do you have a criminal record?
nothing that's no more than raising a little hell when I was a kid. No felonies or anything like that.
Next question. Those on fixed incomes are very concerned about rising taxation. Given that municipal operations only account for 25% of our tax bill, how likely is it to find ways to keep taxation reasonable as a select board member?
Because we're not a tourist town, we don't have a lot of business in town, it's not going to be likely. I think we need to somehow figure out some way to bring in some sort of tax income that doesn't tax our emergency services and our schools. And I'm not quite sure how to do that. I'm not a selectman, it's not my expertise, but I would definitely be willing to learn and try to work with figuring that problem out.
Hill has no commercial base to offset taxation. What would you do as a select board member to diversify the tax base?
I honestly think we need commercial business. Problem is, every time it comes around, everybody in town doesn't want it. Not in my town, not in my town. We do need some businesses. We need tax income from residences and properties that don't add to our school's load, and bring in the tax money to help offset the issues we have now.
The town owns almost $4 million of property. Granted, these include the firehouse, school, town offices, and the 2 road department buildings. Is it time for the town to make a serious effort to sell a certain number of them year by year to diversify revenue?
I don't see a problem with selling, obviously not the buildings, but the properties that are not just a property, no building, no something we use every day. There is also, we could use some of those properties to do some logging and bring in some income that way before this will.
Right, and you pretty much answered the next one because you excluded the buildings. So the next question is, the town of Hill has no diversity of tax base. If those on fixed incomes, those living paycheck to paycheck, and the children of Hill-born parents are to continue living in Hill, that will have to change. How do you plan to bring commercial interest into town during the short 3-year term?
I'm not sure you could do it in 3 years, but I definitely think we need to attract businesses and commercial industry in town. Right now, all we have is a store. that's pretty much it, and a few construction companies and stuff like that. Commercial business would definitely help our tax base without taxing our tax base, without taxing our services and our emergency services and our school. I'm not sure what the best route is to do that. Have no problem in, looking into that and trying to figure it out, but I don't have a definitive answer.
The water department seems to have no plan to replace the water mains, which are now over 80 years old, nor is it addressing the condition of the water tank. It will not be cheap. What will you do as a select board member to make sure that the waterworks has effective and devoted commissioners so that goal happens before catastrophe?
Totally agree on the 80-year-old water system. I've said it to my wife 100 times that it's time for some work. I do know they have plans to do a couple of major projects this year. And as far as I know, next year they also have intentions of other bigger projects as well. They want to update the stuff. It's bad. It's been neglected for a long time, and this year we've been lucky. Last year we had problems. I've been in town about 12, 13 years, and a couple of times there's been some serious problems, and they got them fixed, but it was a Band-Aid.
The core of our drug problem here and the production and the thieving that's happening, it's a relatively small group of people, and their identities are pretty well known.
Yeah.
If the previous police chief was unable to quash it, what makes you certain a new one will?
I think if Joe stayed, it would have been, he was working towards fixing that problem. You're never going to get rid of 100% of that issue. It's up to the community, as I said in my statement, to make it uncomfortable for these people to live around us. If they're not comfortable here, they'll move on. And granted, it's too bad because I'm saying it's somebody else's problem, but eventually they sort themselves out or go to jail or whatever. I definitely think I need the chief. The new chief needs to be on top of that. And it is a serious issue, and it's not just our issue. It's an issue in Danbury, Alexandria, Bristol, Franklin as well. That's it needs to be addressed, and I'm not sure. Well, I'm not a police officer. I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but I definitely. And it's not just the police; it's the courts that are letting us down as well. Police does a good job taking care of the problem, and the court doesn't hold up its end.
The deplorable road conditions in Hill are directly linked to the road equipment being pummeled prematurely into disrepair or outright need of replacement. What will you do to address the glacial pace at which roads are being resurfaced? This is a neglected issue. We would not need to replace trucks so soon if the roads were not so crappy. All winter, the plows are rattled to death because of the current road conditions.
The problem with rebuilding all the roads, that's a lot of money. I think Greg had a pretty good plan going on. He wanted to get some stuff done. I also feel that taking care of the equipment is the #1 way to keep it from falling apart. If you neglect your equipment, it's not going to treat you well, and it's not going to last. So I'm a big proponent of, I'm in the heavy truck industry and automotive repair industry, and I'm a big proponent of taking care of something, greasing it, and fixing something that's broken. You find something that's broken, you fix it. Don't wait until spring.
Brings me to my next question. Since you have a very time-consuming job, what assurance do taxpayers have that you are able to give the time and devotion required to tackling the tough issues and keep up with the workload of a select board member? Select board members are not only required to do their office duties, their in-office duties, they're also assigned to serve on the budget committee, planning board, and zoning board of appeals.
I have a good employee, I have a good part-time employee. I can pull away from the shop if need be on certain daily not daily basis, but day-to-day basis here and there. I can't neglect my own business, but I definitely can take time from it to take care of business here.
Okay. Last question. Taxation seems to be the major concern for the overwhelming majority of voters. The town is only 25% of our collective bill. The school district is 65%. Is it realistic to expect that you have any real control over the ever-increasing tax bills? Are you willing to tackle the reality of the cost of education, or will that topic be avoided because you might fear losing votes for re-election?
Education is important. I personally did not finish school, but it wasn't because I didn't think education was important. It was many other reasons. Education costs money. There's a problem, probably the wasteful spending of some things definitely has an impact on that. I don't know a lot about the school budget. I'm not super immersed in the school's budget and the day-to-day, so my answer on that is not going to be very detailed. I have no problem learning and trying to figure stuff out, but I can't really give you a good answer on that.
Well, thank you, Harold. You have answered all of my questions, and I appreciate the time you've given us.
Thank you.
Good luck.